So what is up, guys? And in this episode, we're going to talk about the Samsung Galaxy Z Fold 7 months later, my honest review of this phone. So the very first thing I want to talk about is that you can get this phone right now a little bit discounted off the MSRP of this phone. The retail price is a little bit down right now, and actually you can get a pretty high trade-in value on this phone right here. So it's actually a better deal price-wise right now than it might have been a little bit while ago. So definitely not paying the full price in most scenarios to get this. And it does offer up the best folding experience ever for a Z Fold. However, there are some qualms. I almost dropped it there. There are some qualms I have with it and some issues. And those are mostly just the S Pen. But it's pretty striking how thin they got this phone. And you'll see some of that engineering feat on the phone. Look how much space is left to get that SIM card trade-in. It is striking. Like, there is almost nothing left to get that SIM card tray in. You'll see the camera does stick a pretty good amount off the body, but I mean, what are you going to do when the phone's so thin? Over here on the right side, you'll see they barely got that fingerprint sensor in there that doubles as a power button, volume markers right there. But after all this time owning this phone since it came out, I gotta say, it's still incredibly striking how thin and light this phone feels. And it really plays into it's actually a very valuable thing to have that thinness and lightness on this phone. It's not just about the aesthetics, because when you're holding a Z Fold, it is a pretty large screen. And so having multiple applications open, scrolling through things, and having a lightweight factor actually makes it more comfortable to use on a day-to-day. So not only is it striking to look at and behold, it also is pretty useful, especially when you're doing triple split screens and stuff of this sort. It doesn't really get too fatiguing on the hand. So I've enjoyed that and pretty much love this device months later for that. I also really like the larger display of this Z Fold 7. It's a little bit hard to tell when you kind of just look at this and you look at a Z Fold 6 online, but in person, it's just bigger. It feels like a massive inner display, and I'm sure the trifold is even better than this. But you know, for a foldable, the Z series, a Z folding series, is definitely going in the right direction. 8 inches already, so I'm hoping it gets even bigger in the future. But I don't know how much bigger it can get while staying this thin. But we're probably going to see more of a creaseless display soon. But just having all this real estate always improves the productivity of the phone. Of course, you can turn it in different directions, and then you have even more space depending on which angle you put it in. But definitely, it's just such a powerhouse when it comes to productivity, having 2 apps side by side. And this is honestly incredibly useful. It really is on the day-to-day. You know, I feel like I don't even need to go to my laptop for some use cases. For example, let's go ahead and go here into the Samsung internet, and we'll go to samsung.com really quickly here. We'll just go there. I misspelled that, whatever. We'll fix it. We'll just click right there. And you'll see there's just a lot more space to see things. And of course, even on Google Chrome, you'll actually be able to see full web page tabs. Watch this. So when you're in this, landscape version in Chrome, you'll see it just kind of feels like you're using a whole full-on tablet right here, or essentially like a full internet browser. So the actual experience is so much better than a slab phone. You can see the punch hole does kind of get poked in there right there. It does kind of stick out a little bit. That's one thing I don't love about this iteration of the Fold, but at least it's not too much in the way. It doesn't really tend to bother too much. And with all this canvas, it's one of the reasons why a lot of people did wish that there was an S Pen on here, me included. I do wish that was there, but I kind of don't think about it too much as I use this phone, because you can still get everything pretty much done with a finger. And of course, you could use separate styluses and things of that sort, but definitely just the amount of productivity that can be done on this phone is insane. I actually think they should put the decks, how they put the decks on the trifold? I feel like they should just put it on here too. Like, why not? You can still probably navigate it. It might be a little bit more cramped, but I feel like it could still be done on this phone. So I'd like to see that in the future, but you just have so much fun with the multitasking while also being very productive. You can also do the pop views, and it makes a lot more sense on something like a Z Fold than it does on other devices. Of course, the media experience is also pretty good. So in watching video, you can see there are bars on here. That is one of the issues I do have with the phone. It doesn't really feel that much bigger than a slab phone, but when you do punch in a little bit or you go into landscape, it is bigger in this orientation. But where it's better than a lot of slab phones is it's like a full square right there. So it reminds you a lot more of like 16:9 type videos when you're down there. But when you zoom in, it does give you this massive screen where you can see everything. But it generally crops in so much that you are cutting off quite a bit of content. It doesn't seem to bother me too much in certain videos, but others, you could essentially just kind of like take away most of the content, when you are watching it. So that's not something that I'm going to say that I wouldn't want to do too often, especially in things like movies and stuff like that. It'll cut off a little bit too much. But media experience is just absolutely phenomenal on here. That is definitely something. Also, of course, you're going to get all of the same customizations that you're used to with Samsung, including Good Lock, the theming, the Samsung Store, the Play Store. You have different home up gestures. Let's go ahead and open this thing up right here. You can see you can change gesture settings. I mean, you can really fine tune everything down to the icon blurring effects. I mean, we can get pretty in depth here. I can even change the taskbar type. I can also change edge panels, how they appear, how they scroll. I mean, we can dive deep. We can even change the animations and how those look. But I'm not going to dig too deep in here. I could spend an entire video just talking about Good Lock itself. But the phone itself, the display you've seen there, it's been amazing, especially on that inner display. Now, it does have a pre-installed screen protector, but it does scratch a little bit easy, like with nails and stuff. So you can get these little hairline scratches on this phone a little bit easy. And touching plastic still feels like this is like a plastic feeling display. So touching it still doesn't feel quite as durable as touching glass. So you do got to pay attention, but your brain kind of remembers that with this phone. You kind of get used to like this is a little more fragile, and you find yourself kind of just touching it a little bit less aggressively, if you will. When you're on the front, pretty much feels exactly like a regular smartphone. And this is one of the better things about this Fold than ever before, is that the 6.5-inch display really does emulate closer to a regular slab phone. And while it is still more narrow than most of them, it's not too far off anymore. And before, the folds were always very, very thin, but I can get on with my day just fine on the front display here. And I tend to like doing this when I'm out and about. I don't tend to like opening the display unless I'm chilling at home or I'm chilling somewhere. I don't really like opening it too much in public. I just kind of like staying a little bit stealthy with this front display right here. So that is enjoyable, and it's still a good one. I mean, it still does have a very bright panel on the front, very sharp resolution, and it also does have enough space to get things done. You can even read on here and do everything you need to do. You can also do the same split screen options as well, although it's so cramped on the front. I mean, what's the point in even using it too much there when you could just open it up to this massive, beautiful display right here on the inside? So I don't really use split screen too much on the front because I have that, inner display. But yeah, that's how I feel about it. You can also get it a lot more vivid if you want. In this video, I've been showing you it in natural mode. I tend to prefer it there, as the vivid is a little bit piercing on my eye when I'm trying to read a bit. But if you want it more vivid, you can crank up that. You can change the warm tones, make that vivid, super vivid. So it's really up to you. It truly is. The one thing about this one, though, it doesn't have quite as good as anti-reflective as like the Ultra line, but it's still, both displays on here are just absolutely fire. I love both of them. One of the great things too about this phone has been its performance. It's extremely fast, just like the Ultra line, just like the regular S25. While it doesn't benchmark exactly the same, it still has plenty of RAM at 12 gigs. It still has the Snapdragon 8 Elite. It's a 3nm chip. So this phone actually runs incredibly fast. It runs faster than most Samsung tablets. It runs faster than a lot of laptops, honestly. This is a really, really fast smartphone. And it can definitely handle pretty much anything you're going to throw at it on the market. So I do think you're going to really enjoy this device right here if you're into high performance on your foldable. Most foldables do have high performance, but this is one of the higher ones out there. So you'll really, really like this if you like a really high-end processor experience, you're really going to enjoy this. And of course, with having that bigger display, hey, this is a test of the typing. Hold on. Of the typing. It also has incredibly nice accuracy with typing because of that larger display. Bring it this way, and you'll also have a little bit of an easier typing, right there. So when you have it in this portrait mode, so definitely you can get your typing on extremely accurately here. Then on the front, if we take a look at the keyboard right there, you'll see it is narrow still enough for one-handed use, but not so big that you have to have two hands. But if you want to have two hands, it's not so small that you're going to bump in your thumbs all the time. So they really nailed the cover display combined with the inner display on this one. I like it a lot. This has been one of my favorite folding experiences ever. This Z Fold 7 is the business. It really is. All right, guys, so let's talk about the cameras. They've been pretty good. We do have a 200 megapixel camera on here. So if we go right there, you do have the ability to have one really strong sensor on board. But where this phone tends to fall apart a bit for me is the zooming. Now, under great lights, the camera is going to look just fine. But when I actually took this into lower light and started zooming, this phone reminded me a lot of the regular S line of phones. It doesn't tend to have the highest quality there. Again, they're going to look amazing here in this type of lighting. But if you go into video, you do have pretty nice video options right here, 8K. You can do 4K at 60. You can do Full HD 60. You can do pro video, portrait modes, dual record. I mean, all the stuff is here. This is the business, just like the Ultra. But where it's not like the Ultra is having all the best lenses. So I'm still waiting for Samsung to just put all the pro lenses, the best of the best, on the Fold. They just haven't done it yet. So this one is no exception. Now the front-facing camera, decently wide, but this camera is still 10 megapixels, so that's kind of weak sauce. I would like to see improvement there as well. Of course, I still like using the camera with the cover display. It's pretty, or with the cover display, it's pretty. So we're just gonna click this right here. You'll see the cover preview screen. And here on the front-facing camera, you can actually bring this extremely wide right here, and you could also zoom in a lot if you want to do that. Probably not necessary, but really nice feature for this phone overall. I gotta say, definitely really like that. So when it comes to the battery with this phone is pretty good. I wouldn't say it's the best, but it's better than the Edge. I found it to be better than the Samsung S25 Edge, worse than that of like the S25 Plus and Ultra, but better than the base model S25. It's somewhere in between the S25 regular and the Ultra. It's not quite as good as the Plus or the Ultra though, so it's a little bit below those in my experience. But generally, it's a full day phone. It does drain a lot more, I find, when I'm using the inner display, actually, the foldable display, which is to be expected. But definitely, battery life is good enough. I've been happy enough with it. It doesn't ruin the phone experience. It's nowhere near something like that. But there's always room for improvement. So I'd like to see a larger battery. I like to see longer lasting battery on the future folding devices, although the trifold doesn't look very promising as they're not putting a massive battery in there either, but a slightly bigger one for that extra screen. Something I did want to talk about too is the fingerprint sensor on here has definitely been a little bit of a hit or miss. Sometimes you could miss this fingerprint, sometimes you won't. A lot of times it just kind of feels like you might miss because of the way it's so thin and the way it's placed on the body. So there's a little bit of it's a little bit hard sometimes to get that accurate all the time, but that's easily rectified by just putting a, face unlock on here. So you can see really simply, it'll just face unlock just like that. So that's good. Generally, the durability has felt very durable as well. It feels like a very finished product now, except for the inner display crease. But other than that, the whole phone feels like the real deal. It feels like it's finally ready for prime time overall, and it doesn't feel weak at all. It feels actually like a very strong phone, especially when it's closed. When it's open, of course, this inner display, and I've been getting this little issue where it like does this white screen sometimes. I don't know why it does that, but you just kind of got to reopen it. I don't know why it does that, but generally I've been getting this feeling like you still want to be a bit careful on the inner display, but the shell, everything around it, the hinge, everything still feels intact after like all these months I've had it. You definitely notice as you use it for a while. Hold on. Oh yeah, that's another thing you just seen right there. This phone is a little bit harder to open than previous folds, but you definitely notice after a while, what the heck is going on? It keeps doing that. But you definitely notice after a while that the display, when you open it like this, after a while, it feels like it's not as like stiff as like when you first get it. It kind of like gets a little, I'm not going to say it gets play. It just kind of gets more broken in, if you will. That's just something you notice about this foldable after quite some time. So yeah, so that's about it for me. That's my long-term experience with the device. It does have Bluetooth 5.4. It does have Wi-Fi 7 support. You know, I also like the camera rings around here. I think they look better than the Galaxy S line, but this phone has been out for several months, like about 6 months already. So definitely all these months later, I gotta say, it's been a pretty fantastic experience. I would call this phone about like an 8.5, almost 9 out of 10. It is very, very good. But it's definitely not, I think, the peak of what Samsung can do. I think they can actually make a creaseless version of a fold. And I also think they can still make the cameras better and the battery life longer. So they're almost to the perfect folding phone. And this one has near perfection, but not quite. It still does need some work. But generally, it's been the best one yet. And the S Pen is definitely missed here. So let's bring that back as well. That's my 6 months later on this phone. Let me know your thoughts. Do you agree? Do you disagree with my content here on this one? I'd like to know what you think about the Z Fold. If you're a Z Fold owner, also share your experience. It helps others out who are watching these videos interested in picking one up. I'll catch you guys on the next episode. Thank you very much for watching. Nick here. Be sure to be well, and peace.